The NBA's Oklahoma City Thunder have experienced much success recently. As I am making this video, they are playing in the second round of the playoffs after earning the 1 seed in the Western Conference. The franchise is also looking to build a new arena in the city. However, what if I told you the Thunder were not always playing in Oklahoma? They were originally the Seattle SuperSonics, another successful NBA franchise on and off the court, with a championship in 1979 and great fans. So, why would they move? The answer is complicated, but in this video I will explain why and what the future looks like for basketball in Seattle. The Sonics were founded in 1967. From the team's first season in 1967 to 1983, the team was owned by Sam Schoolman. The franchise was then owned by Barry Ackerley from 1983 to 2001. After that, the chaos begins. Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz would then own the team, but not for long, only until about 2006. It was in 2006, after unsuccessful efforts to convince Washington state government officials to provide funding to update Key Arena, that Schultz decided to sell the SuperSonics and the WNBA Seattle Storm to Oklahoma businessman Clay Bennett for $350 million. Schultz expected Bennett to keep the team in Seattle. Schultz would be disappointed like other Sonics fans. After attempting to build a $500 million arena complex in Renton, a suburb of Seattle, Bennett quickly turned his attention to Oklahoma. Similar to Schultz, the city of Seattle did not like the plan either, and sued Bennett, demanding that the team stay in Seattle until 2010, when their lease at Key Arena ended. Despite this, the NBA seemed to support it, with a 28-2 vote in favor of relocating the SuperSonics to Oklahoma City. The only two owners who voted against the relocation were Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks and Paul Allen of the Portland Trail Blazers. After the franchise reached an agreement with the city of Seattle, they began playing in Oklahoma City for the 2008-2009 season. In 2008, a settlement included an agreement for the ownership group to pay $45 million to Seattle and another $30 million if Seattle had not received a new team by 2013. Interestingly, unlike the Vancouver Grizzlies or Charlotte Hornets, who kept their names when moving to Memphis and New Orleans, the new Oklahoma City team agreed not to use the name SuperSonics, as they are now known as the Oklahoma City Thunder, allowing a new team in Seattle to use the name. Speaking of a new team in Seattle, there have been some relocation efforts to bring the NBA back to Seattle, the most well-known being the attempt to move the Sacramento Kings to Seattle. Chris Hansen was working with Seattle Mayor Mike McGinn to return the SuperSonics to Seattle. One of Hansen's investment partners included Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer, who now owns the Los Angeles Clippers. It was believed that the Kings could relocate to Seattle as soon as the 2013-2014 season. However, Kevin Johnson, mayor of Sacramento, was trying to keep the Kings in his city. Johnson began to create his own ownership group to keep the Kings in Sacramento. The Sacramento ownership group included Vivek Ranadive, who looked to create a stronger group of investors. On April 3, 2013, a meeting was held in New York City for both sides to share their proposals. The relocation committee asked the groups to do another presentation on April 29, 2013, before the Board of Governors meeting in May. The committee recommended that the Kings move to Seattle be rejected, and the Board of Governors agreed with a 22-8 vote in favor of keeping the Kings in California's capital, after a May 15th vote in Dallas, Texas. This failure does not mean the end for basketball in Seattle. The SuperSonics still have great fans, and even more importantly, the NBA is looking to expand again. When the league reaches an agreement on a new media rights deal, they will almost certainly look to add more teams to the league. Another almost certainty is the league expanding to Seattle and Las Vegas. Both cities have done well with NHL expansion teams, and with Seattle's long history of basketball in the city, and Las Vegas beginning to host the NBA's in-season tournament, they are the two obvious choices. Especially now that Seattle has an arena, Climate Pledge Arena that can easily support an NBA franchise along with its hockey team. The only big question remaining is when.
At that point, I'm pretty sure we're going to turn back to expansion. It's been a long time since we expanded. There's a bunch of great markets in the U.S., frankly, and other markets in Canada have shown interest as well. Mexico City has shown interest. So I think it's a natural part of any organization to grow over time. And clearly this sport is growing in the United States. It's growing globally. So not at this moment, but we will look to expansion in the future.
In conclusion, the SuperSonics will return one day. Probably not through a relocation, especially after what happened with the Kings, but certainly as an expansion team sometime in the future. Seattle is a great sports city with great fans and deserves to have an NBA team as soon as possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to Key Arena, Kevin Durant.
Sonic jerseys, Jeff. It's really wild to see, and look what he's wearing as he comes out.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.